Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the launch of our Essential Series Know and Go webinars. Today's topic, and what better place to start, unpacking the Reef Credit Scheme. It's an additionally appropriate topic given that today is World Water Day. May I first begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of country across Australia, in particular acknowledging their care and connection to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us on this live webinar today. My name is Marie Adsett and I'm the CEO here at Eco Markets Australia. It's my great pleasure to be here facilitating our first of the series, and with me is none other than our very own Liza Davis, who's our landholder and market liaison, who will be doing the presentation. We created the Essential series with the idea that it might help develop an informed and collaborative community around environmental markets as they emerge and grow and become more effective as market mechanisms to finance nature conservation and restoration. These Know and Go webinars are deliberately designed to be relaxed, short, get us up to speed on key topics of interest and back on with our day in under an hour. I'm going to hand over shortly to Liza for the presentation. Her topic will take roughly 20 to 25 minutes. And then that will be followed by an opportunity to unpack the information that she's shared through her presentation with some questions and answers. And that will take us up to 12 noon. Your videos and your mics have been muted. So if anyone's joining us from overseas, relax. We can't see that you're really in your PJs. We've done that today because of the sheer volume of attendees on this, of our first of our series, and how exciting that there are so many people really curious and interested in this important conversation. If you'd like to ask a question, and I really hope you do, please use the Q&A function along the top of the options available to you. Write in your question and post it. Don't use the chat function because I'm in charge of moderating and I'm just going to get really confused trying to monitor the two channels. So use the Q&A function, and can you please don't hesitate to write it in as you think of the question. It doesn't matter if you write a question and Liza answers it in 2 minutes later in the next slide. Still write it in as you think of it, because I'll moderate those and curate those as we go and put them to Liza at the end. I should also mention that the content of today's presentation component of our webinar is going to be recorded, and the idea is we're going to create a series of learning modules on our website under the Essential Series banner. And your questions are going to be really important because that's going to help us frame some frequently asked questions that we will write then as content to go with each of those video learning modules. So that way, if you ever miss a topic, we've got you. And if you really love a webinar and you want to share it with some friends or a colleague, you can easily do that as well using the link on our website. And that way, our informed community of people really passionate about a healthier and more resilient Great Barrier Reef and natural environment more broadly will continue to grow and have great impact. So that's enough from me. Welcome one and all. I'll hand over now to Liza. And Liza, you may commence your presentation.
Thanks, Marie, and welcome everyone. And thank you for your interest in EMA's Essential Series webinars. Today, we will be unpacking the Reef Credit Scheme. This webinar will provide an overview of the Reef Credit Scheme, including the project lifecycle. We will look at the high integrity features of the Reef Credit Scheme, which are increasingly acknowledged as the global benchmark that should underpin any environmental market. And finally, we'll look at the current demand for reef credits. As Marie indicated, at the end of the presentation, there will be time for Q&A so we can answer any questions that you have. So who is Eco Markets Australia? We're a not-for-profit company and registered charity founded in 2020 that administers environmental markets. We are the only independent environmental markets administrator in Australia. Internationally, other independent administrators are Verra and Gold Standard. In our role, we acknowledge we have a responsibility to our stakeholders, the market, people and the environment, and we're proud to administer the Reef Credit Scheme. We set the standards, so to speak, which are the rules and requirements that underpin these markets and ensure there is governance, transparency and accountability. We approve the methodologies used in the schemes we administer. We operate a registry that lists approved projects and tracks the issue, transfer and retirement of credits. What we don't do is develop projects or write methodologies. So what are environmental markets? Very simply, they're a market-based approach to restoring and protecting natural resources. Many of you would have heard the term natural capital. This refers to ecosystems like wetlands, rivers, lakes, forests and soils that are necessary to sustain life on Earth. Environmental markets are a way to value natural capital and create an economic incentive to sustain it. It is estimated that worldwide there is a $700 billion nature financing gap between what is spent on activities that benefits nature and what is needed to protect and restore nature. And governments can't do this alone. Environmental markets are a way to incentivise landholders to undertake projects that restore or protect nature and also provide a way for private investors to invest in these outcomes. Some examples are the carbon market. In Australia, we have the ACCU scheme, the new nature repair market and the Reef Credit Scheme. So why do we have a Reef Credit Scheme? After climate change, water quality is the most significant threat to the Great Barrier Reef. Cleaner water for the reef is achieved through improved land management practices and landscape repair, as well as urban wastewater treatment and stormwater management in the reef catchment area. There is a priority to deliver water quality improvements at speed and scale and to bridge an identified $7 billion funding gap needed to meet the reef water quality targets set by the Queensland and federal governments. A report by the Great Barrier Reef Water Science Task Force in 2016 recommended that market-based approaches should be considered to accelerate progress towards reef water quality targets. This led to Queensland Government funding for a major integrated project with Terrain, NRM, NQ Drive Topics and Green Collar, a group of amazing Australian environmental market pioneers, and the development of the Reef Credit Scheme. The scheme focuses currently on 2 water quality targets to reduce dissolved inorganic nitrogen loads by 60% and fine sediment loads by 25%. The pilot phase of the scheme commenced in 2017, with the first reef credits issued in 2019. So what are reef credits? Reef credits are generated by project proponents undertaking eligible project activities using an approved methodology. These projects must adhere to the methodology and monitor and verify outcomes to generate reef credits. Reef credits are then sold to investors, which may be government, financial institutions, corporates or philanthropists, and provide a diversified income stream for landholders, which can be used to help fund the project activities and other land management practice improvements. Participation in the scheme is voluntary. It's important to clarify that this is an environmental market and project proponents are issued credits for a verified environmental outcome. In this way, it differs from other sources of funding through programs or grants. And what we're going to do over the next slides is unpack the components of the Reef Credit Scheme in a little more detail. The Reef Credit Standard. This is the document that contains the rules and requirements for a reef credit project and for issuing, tracking and transferring reef credits. This is supported by methodologies that define eligible project activities, how to undertake a project and quantify reef credits generated. Methodologies are robust technical and science-based documents. Projects must be independently audited by third-party verifiers that confirm the project activities have been undertaken in accordance with the standard, applied methodology and the number of reef credits generated. Ecomarkets Australia approves verifiers and reviews and confirms the verification report before issuing any reef credits. All approved reef credit projects can be viewed on the registry, which also tracks the issuance, transfer and retirement of reef credits. Another important resource is the Reef Credit Guide, which provides an overview of the entire Reef Credit Scheme and is accessible on the Ecomarkets Australia website. As previously mentioned, project proponents need to use an approved methodology. The Reef Credit Scheme currently has 3 approved methodologies: nitrogen use efficiency, referred to as the DIN methodology, gully rehabilitation, and wastewater bioremediation. Some additional details about each of these methodologies is on the side panel of this slide. Methodologies to support grazing land management and constructed treatment wetlands are currently in draft format and working through the Reef Credit Scheme's methodology approval procedure. This procedure requires Eco Markets Australia to undertake a 30-day public consultation period and peer review. The methodology developer is required to work through and resolve any identified issues or concerns raised through public consultation and peer review. Once a methodology is approved by Eco Markets Australia, it is made available on our website and can be used by any project proponent to develop a reef credit project. In administering the Reef Credit Scheme, Eco Markets is supported and advised by a technical advisory committee. The committee chair is Bob Spears, who has had a long career in natural resource management. Other members are Jane Waterhouse, with expertise in Great Barrier Reef water quality science, and who many of you would know through her involvement in the scientific consensus statement for the Great Barrier Reef. We also have David Pennell from Western Australia, with expertise in land and water conservation economics, farm best practice management, and farming system economics. The Technical Advisory Committee advised Eco Markets Australia on the technical aspects of the standard and the methodologies. The registry. This is the central repository of all information relating to reef credit projects and reef credits. It lists all approved projects and the reef credits that have been issued to these projects. It also tracks these reef credits until they are retired. What I've done on this slide is include a screenshot of the registry projects page. You can click on each of the projects and read additional information, including a description of the project activities, the project area, the reef catchment it's located in, and an estimate of reef credits it's expected to generate. The registry is publicly accessible from the Eco Markets Australia webpage. So what does a reef credit represent? For those familiar with carbon credits, you would know that 1 carbon credit equals 1 metric tonne of carbon dioxide prevented from entering the atmosphere. For the Reef Credit Scheme, 1 reef credit equals 1 kilogram of DIN, that's dissolved inorganic nitrogen, or 538 kilograms of fine sediment prevented from entering the Great Barrier Reef. If you want to know more about the calculation of these values, you can find this in Schedule 1 of the Reef Credit Standard, and again, that's available on our website. The Reef Credit Project Lifecycle. This diagram sets out the steps involved in undertaking a project under the Reef Credit Scheme. Step 1, partnership and project design. Landholders usually work with a project developer. There are currently 3 involved with the scheme: Green Collar, Palladium, and Regen Aqua, noting Regen Aqua is specifically focused on the wastewater method. Project design looks at land management practice or works to be undertaken and determines the project viability. This includes an estimate of reef credits that the project is likely to generate. If this all looks positive, parties will enter into a project delivery agreement, which sets out who will be responsible for doing what and how the revenue from reef credits will be shared. Step 2 is validation and registration. The project proponent. This is the party that has overall responsibility for the project and is usually the project developer. Will complete the Reef Credit Project application form and submit this along with supporting documentation to Eco Markets Australia. If it meets all the rules and requirements of the standard and applied methodology, Eco Markets Australia will validate the project and add it to the registry. Step 3, implementation and monitoring. The project proponent with the landholder implements the project activities and monitors the outcome. For gully projects, this will involve capital works at the beginning of the project. Verification. All projects must undergo independent verification by a third-party verifier approved by Eco Markets Australia. This process confirms the pollutant baseline and reduction calculations, the quantity of reef credits, and that it was implemented in accordance with the standard and applied methodology. Step 5, reef credit issuance. Ecomarkets Australia receives from the project proponent the verification report and the Reef Credit application for certification and issuance. It then confirms this information and issues Reef Credits into the project proponent's registry account. The project will cycle through steps 3 to 5 over the project crediting period, triggered by when credits can be issued. This is specified in each methodology. For example, this is yearly for the DIN methodology and triggered by a rainfall event for the gully methodology. Step 6, transfer or retirement of reef credits. Reef credits are then sold and purchased by transferring the credits between registry accounts or retired and moved to the retirement account. When a party makes a claim to the environmental benefit associated with the reef credit, it triggers retirement. E.g., Company X bought 200 reef credits and contributed to water quality improvements in the Great Barrier Reef. If no one makes a claim to the reef credit environmental benefit, it is automatically retired after 3 years, although Ecomarkets Australia is consulting to extend this to 5 years. So how can you be confident that reef credits are delivering the environmental outcomes claimed? Well, there are some agreed high integrity features for environmental markets, essentially a global benchmark, and I will talk through how the Reef Credit Scheme addresses each of these. Independence, and this is specifically about governance. Ecomarkets Australia administers the scheme to ensure there is transparency and trust for those undertaking projects and investors. Real. This means that reef credits are issued from registered reef credit projects that produce a quantifiable and verified pollutant reduction or removal. This is achieved through methodologies that use conservative approaches and robust science. Permanent. Where pollutants are sequestered in the landscape, the outcomes must be monitored and maintained beyond the project crediting period. For the Reef Credit Scheme, the permanence period is currently 50 years. Where there is a risk of reversal, measures must be in place to address this risk and compensate reversals. I will address risk of reversal a little bit later as well. Additional. Reef credit pollutant reductions and removals must be over and above business as usual, legal requirements and what is already funded to occur. The registry. We've already mentioned this. It provides transparency by listing all the reef credit projects and tracks issuance, transfer and retirement of reef credits. Leakage. This is the risk that activities that harm water quality from within the project area will be moved to a location outside the project area. For example, a risk that farming on adjacent land might be intensified to compensate for reduced output in the project area. Reef credit projects must identify and assess any potential sources of leakage and ensure that this does not occur. Risk of reversal. Where there is a risk that the project outcomes could be reversed, safeguards must be in place to ensure that should a reversal occur, there is a way to guarantee replacement or compensation. This is done by requiring a proportion of reef credits from that project to be placed in a buffer account. If a reversal event occurs, Ecomarkets Australia draws from the buffer account to compensate for this event. Measurable. For each reef credit that a project generates, this is equal to 1 kilogram of DIN or 538 kilograms of fine sediment prevented from entering the Great Barrier Reef. The demand for reef credits. To have a well-functioning environmental market, there must be transparency, measurable outcomes and integrity through a standard and independent administration. And we've discussed these elements as they relate to the Reef Credit Scheme in the previous slides. What is also needed is supply and demand. To date, over 44,700 reef credits have been issued. Reef credits have been sold to government and corporate buyers, representing over 44 tonnes of dissolved inorganic nitrogen prevented from entering the Great Barrier Reef. To date, the reef credit projects on our registry are all associated with the DIN methodology. We know from talking to project developers that there are new reef credit projects in the pipeline using the gully and wastewater methodologies, which we expect to see registered over the coming months, and that this number is likely to increase linked to new methodologies. To date, we have seen investment in reef credits from HSBC, Qantas, Seafood Supplies, the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, and most recently a $10 million investment by the Queensland Government. Eco Markets Australia believes there is a role for governments to invest in emerging environmental markets like reef credits, to be pioneering investors, so to speak, and in this way signal to the private sector where there is integrity and value. We, and hopefully not too ambitiously, expect to see demand for reef credits increase as investors build their understanding of how buying a risk-free, verified outcome, a reef credit, can deliver against corporate sustainability commitments or respond to nature-related risks and opportunities as part of the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosures work, as well as their potential use in secondary markets, for example, stapling an environmental outcome like a reef credit with a carbon credit. Reef credits using the DIN methodology have sold for $100 per credit. We expect to see, we expect to see the price increase in the future, and also to see a price differentiation between reef credits for DIN and fine sediment. This is not unexpected as there is significant capital investment for projects that will generate fine sediment credits. Now time for our Q&A. So I'm going to hand back to Marie, who's going to moderate this session.
Thank you very much, Liza. That was a great unpacking of the Reef Credit Scheme.